Namaste. Hello. One of the questions which I'm very frequently asked as a yoga teacher is whether or not I'm vegetarian. And it raises this constant sort of question about what do we do about the food that we eat. I hesitate to use that word diet, like what is your diet? Because as soon as we use that word diet, we tend to think of something which is restrictive. So we are a vegetarian, not because we just like to eat vegetarian food, but because on our diet we do not eat meat. A vegan does not eat meat of any form. I suppose you could say that an omnivore will eat everything, and a carnivore will only eat meat. And so our diet tends to be very prescriptive. So let's ask this question again. What do you eat? And then it raises yet another question, because when we say what do you eat, then we're probably thinking about that stuff we put into our mouth. We differentiate between eating and drinking, and yet of course both of them go into the mouth. Both of them are swallowed, both go down into the intestines and are absorbed or eliminated. So eating is a very difficult word just to define in its narrowest form. And so it's worth looking at this question from a yoga point of view. What do we eat? What is our diet? And what is the purpose of what we eat? In history there are several phrases which probably conjure up a suggestion that eating is more than just the food that you put into your mouth. And of course there is the expression in the Bible, in the book of Matthew, that man doth not live by bread alone. Now, we could say that yes, that then means that you need more than bread. You need your carbohydrates generally, but you need your vegetables, you need your fats, you need your proteins. And we're starting to get again very prescriptive, we're starting to get very scientific. And although I love this expression that yoga is a combination of ancient wisdom and modern science, I think we have to look at probably the point in our diet, in what we eat, in what nourishes us, nurtures us, keeps us alive, which fall off the scale of time at either end of that. If we look at the very ancient development of life, then eating was not something which was restricted to what you put in your mouth. An amoeba doesn't have a mouth as such, and yet it absorbs the food that it uses to survive, to breed, to reproduce. If we look into the modern end of what nutrition is all about, we become bogged down with all sorts of science, and it's worth trying to drop all of that, trying to drop being too prescriptive. So let's take this expression, you are what you eat. And let me broaden out just for a moment, because this is something I want to come back to another time. You are what you eat. You are more than what you just put in your mouth. Because remember, we have senses which feed the body. And it may not be the physical body just that we're talking about. It may be that spirit, that soul, the mind, the mental food that we take in. When we exchange physical contact, when we have skin contact with another human being or an animal, when our eyes perceive beauty and it feeds us, it gives us that sense of well-being. To my mind, this is just as much an important part of feeding, of nurturing, nourishing ourselves as the solid food that we put into ourselves. But stick to the question, or stick to the statement, you are what you eat, or what do you eat? And forgetting all about diets, forgetting all about the morality of whether or not you eat meat or any particular other type of food, my basic general rules when it comes to eating are that I like to include something living food in almost every meal I have. That can be in the form of salads, vegetables which are either just still raw or only very lightly cooked, and it can be anything which is coming from a natural source. So I like my food to be natural. I like it to be unmessed about. I do very occasionally eat processed foods, ready meals, but it is very, very seldom that I do so. I like to start with good, if possible, organically produced food. I like to start with food and water that have not been subjected to chemical processes. I like to make food. I like to bring together combinations of food, of what tastes good, because very often our innate intuitive sense of what is good for us is dictated by the natural ingredients that we use. And this is why we have to be very careful when we come to using artificial foods, as we might call them, foods that have been manufactured in a factory, foods which have been adjusted, foods which have additives, foods where the balance of sugar and salt are way out of balance with what is naturally good for a living organism. We have to remember that the manufacturers can control, in a way, our addiction to food and what we put into our bodies. And the easiest way to avoid addiction is to avoid the addictive substances. So yeah, we give up smoking, we give up using drugs, we give up drinking too much alcohol. Stick to what is natural, stick to what is simple, stick to what is plain. And then if you've got a dozen ingredients, you can make a meal with all of those, because they all fulfill that natural basic ability to nourish and nurture your body. The important thing is to enjoy your food, not to become hung up on diets and whether it's good or bad. Let it be a part of your living soul. Let it be an exercise in developing your sense of intuition, and enjoy it. Why not start by making your own muesli? Just the simple ingredients of nuts, dried fruits, any combination of seed, and to that add some jumbo oats. Mix them all together, soak them overnight if you like, and for breakfast a delicious muesli with fresh fruit and a good start to the day.